You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. An active tropical scene is presented in front of us right now with the latest news that Tropical Depression 10 formed in the Atlantic an hour ago, just over that. And here it is on satellite imagery right now. Looking pretty decent, perched just off Cancun, around 70 kilometers away from the city, with 30 mile per hour winds and an estimated pressure of around, I think it was 1005 millibars. This is what everyone's talking about right now, but of course we do have a much stronger storm active around the world as well, on the other side of the world, with Saola off the coast of Luzon in the Philippines. Let's take a look at that right now, and you'll see me up in the top left hand side. My name's Nathan Foy. Welcome to our coverage tonight. And you can see Saola there on that imagery on the left hand side, 140 miles per hour. And we've got loads of graphics to show you about all the storms that are active right now. It's not just these two, but these are our main focuses tonight. We also have Hurricane Franklin. We have Tropical Storm Damri, which is that middle picture at the top there. And we have several invests that could develop, and possibly one about to form in the Eastern Pacific. But we're going to try and keep our priorities straight and focus on our two main storms right now. It's going to be difficult to balance both of them, considering that there's two completely different audiences that will be interested in these storms. But we'll cover more Depression 10 at the moment because it's quite early in the day in the Philippines. But right now we've got Signal 3 warnings for part of Isabella on the eastern coast of Luzon, and Signal 2 warnings for some larger areas around that zone. Now in the Atlantic we have tropical storm warnings now in effect for part of Mexico, of course. Those warnings look like this. A tropical storm warning for the Yucatan Peninsula from Tulum to Rio Lagatos, including Cozumel, and Cuba has issued a tropical storm watch for extreme western Cuba for the provinces of Pinar del Rio and the Isle of Youth. If we switch to some of our graphics here, well, there's the Philippine chart showing you where the Signal 3 warnings are and those Signal 2 warnings. And let's also look at Tropical Depression 10 and those warnings, which extend all around that northeastern corner of the Yucatan. National Hurricane Center expect that this system will become a Category 1 hurricane and strike the Panhandle Bend area of Florida on probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and then move inland and sweep through the Carolinas as a rapidly weakening system. We're also keeping an eye on Franklin, of course, which we might be able to get to at some point, but just for the benefit of my team who are listening in right now, if you could get some cones up for Franklin. We don't have that with us right now here. But let's introduce our team right now. My name's Nathan Foy in the studio, as I mentioned, but we've also got with us right now Charlie, Christian, Sammy, and Seek. Hello to all of you. Let's first talk to Samuel. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I've been monitoring the recent trends with Tropical Depression 10L. I do think that there still remains a wide range of scenarios on how strong 93L, or now 10L, can get. And right now, the current range is a special, my estimates, low end Cat 2, all the way up to potentially a high end Cat 4, low end Cat 5, and this is due to a number of factors that we have out in the Gulf here. We have very warm sea surface temperatures, especially along the eastern Gulf. But the two factors that could limit the storm's potential are going to be the wind shear off in the Gulf, with the timing of a potential cold front, as well as if any kind of dry air could be present at the time. And those are the two things that might hold back its development. However, latest guidelines have shown these two factors to become less of an issue as this moves into towards the Gulf. And I also want to point out that this is also going how much time it has to strengthen is going to also depend on how fast it moves, because some models are running this more quickly than others.
And here you can see those sea surface temperatures that I was trying to grab up for that whole period that you were talking there. And right now, those temperatures correlate to about 29, nearly 30 degrees, and even warmer into the Gulf of Mexico, as you can clearly see. Ahead of that track there, getting close to 32 degrees in a few spots. And decent amounts of oceanic heat content as well. Seek, you are in Florida. Why don't you tell us about what you're expecting and perhaps maybe a little bit of word on the ground there?
Yeah, so current conditions here are the typical Florida heat we see in the summer months here, but that's likely going to change across central Florida and northern Florida, as well as southwestern Florida, as TD10, which eventually should become Idalia, approaches towards the Big Bend area, which could be landfalling east of Tallahassee, in between Jacksonville and Tallahassee area. But there is possibility for the cone to shift a little further east. And currently, right now, the cone for TD10 does barely encompass Tampa Bay, but that might change in the morning, and Tampa might be leaning a little bit towards the center of the cone, in my opinion, as this could be shifted a little bit eastward.
So certainly a lot to talk about with regards to that right now. Let's take a look at some more imagery on the geocolor. This is right now. Of course, most of our imagery is pretty much right up to date, and you can see its structure looking pretty good. It's looked good for the best part of 24 hours, and people were hinting that this could develop much earlier than anticipated, and here we are now at tropical depression status. Now, it is 30 miles per hour, so it's a little bit further to go before we get to tropical storm strength, but are we surprised at all at how quickly it's managed to get itself organized like this? No?
Yeah, TD10's looking very well organized. And real quick, Nathan, if you don't mind, as most people probably know, as pretty much the entire western side of Florida is under a state of emergency. Is it okay if I can go over that for a second?
Of course.
All right, so currently right now, state of emergency is in effect from Lee and Charlotte counties near Fort Myers all the way up to Bay and Calhoun counties, and the Big Bend area. This does include Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco counties, as well as Manatee County, which surrounds Tampa and Tampa Bay. Furthest east this goes includes Columbia, Alachua, Marion, Sumter, Polk, and Hardy, DeSoto counties. That's as far eastward as it goes. And once again, as furthest west it goes is for Bay and Calhoun counties. But the state of emergencies might get shifted a little bit more eastward to possibly include Osceola, Orange, and Lake counties by morning.
And I'm just getting up a little split screen here right now, looking at both active tropical cyclones, the main ones that we're talking about tonight. On the left-hand side, Typhoon Saola, which looked extremely good early on, and look how close it's tracking to the Philippine Islands right now, just off the coast of Isabela, moving in the wrong direction, you might want to say, southwards right now, and eventually we'll start to execute that very sharp turn to the east and north that we're expecting. And of course, on the right hand side, the developing tropical depression 10. Just going to experiment with this. If we move it far enough, oh no, there we can't get to see Franklin, but we can show you Franklin as well. Let me just go and grab that imagery if I can. Here it is. There's a view on Franklin right now, looking pretty decent. It's churning itself up, and then somewhat odd-looking hurricane, but it's got there nonetheless, and it's been really fighting hard in the last 24 hours when it's been dealing with being partially exposed for a lot of that time. Any of the team want to comment on that? No thoughts for Franklin. How very sad. But there it is, actually moving westwards at the moment, and it will eventually track further north, and Bermuda still can't be sure whether they'll get tropical storm force winds or not. And the same story for Canada, actually, but more recent model runs suggesting a further east track after Bermuda for it to shoot right out over the open waters and not affect Canada. So we'll have to see what happens to that. NHC are predicting a stronger peak than previously as well, if I recall. I didn't actually see this for myself, I was just told this. Let me just double check that. They are expecting now a peak intensity of 125 miles per hour, high-end category 3. So that is going to by far be the strongest storm so far of the Atlantic hurricane season, and they're currently giving it 85 miles per hour, which I think may be just slightly generous, but not by much. So back with our split screen, there they are once again, and I'll resort to this every so often as I switch between a few other things that we can look at. Of course, we showed you earlier on, and I'm trying to get that thing to stop. Why does it keep doing that? Got loads of audio going on in the background because I was messing about with the settings and I forgot to turn them off. So there's that going on. Anyways, please send in your comments and questions as we go on with this live stream tonight. We've got a huge amount to cover with all of these storms that are active. So just a reminder, we've got, of course, the main features, Saola and 10L, but we've also got Hurricane Franklin, which is the strongest storm in the Atlantic right now, and we've also got Tropical Storm Damri, which will head very close to Japan within 48 hours. And we've also got an area of interest that's likely to develop into a strong typhoon next week in the Western Pacific. And we've got an Eastern Pacific system that's developing right now. And there is a small chance, quite small chance, for a wave to develop near Cape Verde next week as well. So an active tropics, absolutely, at this moment in time. Redneck Lover 22 said earlier, as an avid cruiser, what would be the possible damage in Cozumel due to this storm? Well, NHC right now are only giving Cozumel about a 40% chance of tropical storm force winds in the first place, so there's no guarantee they'll even get tropical storm force winds, but they are under a warning, so they should expect to see that. They're on the western side of the storm, so that's a good bit of information for them, because the wettest side will be the eastern side, so I would expect maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain for Cozumel, nearly 100 millimeters. So I really don't think it's going to be a serious issue there in the grand scheme of things when we think back to all the other storms that this region has had over the years. Right then, let's talk to Charlie. Are you there? Charlie, in the last hour, did a little short for us on the Full 13 main channel about the formation of Tropical Depression 10, but I don't think he's with us right now. Oh, I think he is.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello. What are your thoughts on this? Were you expecting it so soon?
What were we on about?
Tropical Depression 10?
Yeah. It was... I was looking at it for a while in the past day. It started organising a bit. It's still not a quite low level circulation, but I think yeah, tropical depression's the right stage for it.
And just to remind everyone as well, once again, of the cone here, they're expecting hurricane status by Tuesday during the day, and unclear whether the National Hurricane Center are expecting a hurricane landfall or whether it weakens slightly before it gets there. But I think the first thing you'll notice when looking at this cone is it's quite a chunky cone, and that's because it's stalling so much at the beginning there. I mean, once that happens, I mean, you look at that, I think, what's that? It's Monday afternoon by the time it passes through the Yucatan Channel, so That is a full nearly 48 hours away, so it's quite a while to see what happens to figure this system out, and whether it becomes a tropical storm and how much it can intensify whilst it's stalling there, and whether upwelling it might become an issue, but I somewhat doubt that. Let's see if we can take a look at some more imagery right now. We'll talk about everything. There's Saola once again, at the bottom of the image there in the grand scheme of things in the Western Pacific. 1 or 2 significant dry air channels to its north. But the storm itself looking very good indeed as it slowly drags southwards along the coast of eastern Luzon. Now, Christian, are you with us right now?
I'm here.
Which storm would you like to talk about?
Saola, probably.
Alright then, well there it is. Signal 3 warnings in effect, and was this what you were expecting?
Signal 3, honestly, I didn't expect to see what Saola is up to right now, because last I saw of Saola, it was, I believe, Category 1. What is it now? Category
4.
3? 4? My goodness, okay.
Yep, 140 miles an hour.
Alright, so, yeah, Signal 3 sounds about right. Obviously about 2 months ago I was in the area, so, it's, well, I'll be following the storm very closely from now on.
And there it is once again on our split screen. Let's see if we can get some more comments whilst we're at it then. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we'll be able to answer your questions live on the air. We're here for a little while yet. We're probably going to be here for 2 hours, but we may push further if you know, if there's more information that we need to bring to you. But otherwise, we'll produce an automated stream as well before the night is out to follow these systems live. Okay then, Not Mr. Popular says, what do you think Saola is going to do? Well, it's going to execute that tight turn eastwards fairly shortly, within 24 hours I think, and then northwards, and then wrapping round and making landfall, possibly maybe on the Batanes Islands or on Taiwan, and that will be next week. Some suggestions that it could get to super typhoon status certainly can't be dismissed. It's going to cause a lot of rainfall. The latest projection on the GFS model, which will update next hour, and we'll be able to have a look at it together, is for 800 millimeters of rain over parts of Taiwan. So that's quite a lot. What else have we also got here? Do we think Franklin will threaten Bermuda, or is it unlikely? Well, once again, I'll refer you to the wind speed probabilities. Right now, they are giving it a 50% chance, pretty much, of tropical storm force winds. So a 50-50 shot. And for 50 knot winds, they're giving it about 14% chance. And for hurricane force winds, they're giving it about a 6% chance for Bermuda. Now, on the NHC cone, I don't know if anyone's seen this yet with the update, but I can tell you, looking at it, it is quite clear to see that they are now taking it much further towards the east after passing Bermuda there, which is in line with what the models were doing. And so the Canadian landfall is looking much less likely as you look at that. But they are calling for 4 major hurricane points there, Monday, Tuesday, and Bermuda is just outside of that cone. But of course, if it tracks towards the eastern end of that cone with the wind field, they will get tropical storm force winds. Now, they're giving it 85 miles an hour there, but we can't see the hurricane wind field anywhere. Oh, cool, there has my mouse. That didn't happen last time. So somewhere around here are the hurricane force winds, but they must be so small that they're not visible on this map. Although, to be fair, they have to blow out this map quite a bit to get in the whole track there. But yeah, that's the case of Franklin. I suppose whilst we're here I can show you those wind speed props for yourself as well. This is the tropical storm wind speed. So Bermuda there right on the hovering 50% marker. And for those who are wondering about 10L, you can sort of see them here as well. Not as high as you might expect. with those tropical storm wind probabilities. That will, of course, change as this system develops, most likely. But right now, only just reaching 30% along some of that coastline there. And nowhere yet at 40%, apart from possibly that westernmost tip of Pinar del Rio in Cuba. Right, let's see what we've got. I also believe that we're live on Facebook right now, for courtesy of our team member David. So it's nice to have you on board with us as well. And Seek, I believe that you're in possession of a new microwave image.
Yeah, it's a microwave imagery of TD10 showing a tightening center of rotation, which means it is gradually intensifying, and it is starting to. It's just like it's been going for the past day and a half or so. It's starting to look a lot better than what the models have been showing. So this could be a very interesting play out, as some of these models might actually be not showing the full ability of TD10.
Oh no, my mouse is gone now. It was working just a minute ago. Well, I was going to point to you where the center of circulation is. Of course, people who are familiar will probably be able to figure that out for themselves. But it is just east of Cancun, right on that line, which is 86 degrees west. At least it looks that way. So a stalling motion expected for the best part of 2 days, and given the conditions, Samuel or Seek, how much do you reckon this could intensify over that time period?
Well,
Honestly, yeah, go ahead, Seek. You can put your thoughts in and I'll put mine in.
well, given the conditions that TD10 is expected to be heading into, it could be likely that this could overachieve a Category 1 status and might hit up to the mid to high end Category 2, maybe low end Category 3 status, but we don't know that as of now. And but it is definitely a possibility that this could overachieve as it does meander towards Florida.
Yeah, and especially given the favorability of conditions, especially this time of year, you need to see, like, usually, like you had historically a lot of Gulf systems that we've had over the last couple of years, has had a similar pattern of favorability uh, generally out in the tropics, but especially in the Gulf, um, especially with how warm the Gulf is. All it really needs is to get into an area um, of much of weak wind shear, and that will give it that should be more than enough to strengthen this, potentially even rapidly, if there's if this does not play, if dry air is doesn't end up intruding at all here. So, but I do think that dry air is going to become less of an issue for this storm as it moves up north and east into the Gulf, especially towards those very warm sea surface temperatures. Also do have a map of the current wind shear profiles, and it looks like right now the most favorable conditions um, are out right now for 10L. Is currently in a very favorable area where there's very low wind shear, so that could help contribute to some of its uh, more progressive development. But right now, to the north, the shear is a little bit higher. But if you do, I'd say up to about the Florida Panhandle. But once you get east of the Florida Panhandle, the shear there is less shear along there. So that's going to be a little bit of a factor. But at this rate, I would say that it's going to become less of a factor as the storm begins to pick up speed towards the Gulf.
Now here's another shear map from the Force 13 website. I'm not sure which one you were referring to, but this is another shear map that shows you the conditions around the storm. Where it is right now off the coast of the Yucatan, it is near zero, although there's one or two little spots actually that's a little bit higher to the north, immediate north of the storm, getting close to 20 knots. Way towards the north, near the coast of Florida, near the coast of US Gulf Coast, it is up around 30 to 40, but models are suggesting that wind shear will be at around 20 knots as the storm progresses northwards, which will allow for slow strengthening, is what they're calling for, or gradual strengthening towards hurricane strength and possibly reaching hurricane strength, which is what's forecasted. We're now also joined by Ethan. Hello, welcome. And you are one of our main operations people. Which storm would you like to take on right now?
I think that Saola is the biggest threat, considering that its
Certainly
eye
is
wall
right
is
now.
its eye wall is well, its western eye wall that is very close, if not on the west coast of Luzon. I'd
It
be
is
really
indeed.
interested to hear if there's any surface obs in the area to suggest what this storm's intensity is.
Highly doubt
Either
it.
way,
It's a very remote area, but the small town or village of Palanan is right in that western eye wall. They get lots and lots of strong typhoon landfalls, but I don't know of any observation points anywhere near there.
that would be unfortunate. I have noticed that the overall structure of the storm is degrading a little bit in the latest frames.
It has.
Whether that's due to the storm's very slow movement vector, or maybe some wind shear. I know that there has been some wind shear in the area, or maybe it's a combination of both, or maybe it's also something they do with land interaction in with Luzon. Either way, I would say that this storm is actually slightly weaker than 140 miles an hour right now. Still a Category 4,
Yeah, I
I
think
would
so
say. But either way, it is still an extremely powerful storm and has a very uncertain future ahead of it. When it makes this
Yeah.
northward turn, there's still a lot of question marks to be answered regarding this storm. And it really has to do with the probable tropical depression 93W off to its east, or at least which, in my opinion, is very close to a tropical cyclone status. It's sort of hand in hand. If 93W becomes very strong and in case moves off farther towards the west, that would probably indicate a track into Taiwan. But at the same time, if 93W takes its time forming and moves off towards further off towards the east, that would make a track more towards Hong Kong for Saola. So there's still a lot of question marks to be answered.
Why is that, though?
But
Well, surely you would think it would be the opposite way round.
yeah, models are really all over the place whenever it comes to this. But as things stand right now, the general guidance is suggesting towards a track towards Taiwan. So that means that probable 93W is probably going to become a strong typhoon. But of course, Saola is the big thing. And personally, it would not surprise me to see this storm reach Category 5 status later on, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, that can't be ruled out at all. We're giving it a 1% chance of a Category 5 landfall, and an 8% chance of Category 4, predominantly for the Batanes Islands later on in its life, but real question marks on what happens. So regarding its intensity earlier, it did look a bit better. It had a full red ring for a little bit, and I would say it probably peaked at around 15Z, which local time would have been about midnight. So that's probably when it peaked. 140 miles per hour. We're still giving it benefit of the doubt right now. I don't know, Ethan. It might just come back very shortly. It's almost got that full ring again.
It is sort of hit or miss whenever it comes to this storm. But either way, that the eye temperature is quite decent, I think. Let me just pull up the eye temperature data that I
also wait for that. A
normally
question: is ACE only used for West Pacific and Indian Ocean storms, and how much ACE does Typhoon Saola have? Well, ACE is accumulated cyclone energy. It's a calculation, and it can be applied to any tropical cyclone that reaches storm status. And how much does Typhoon Saola have? Well, probably not very much at the moment.
No, it only formed like what, 2 days ago?
Yeah, so it must be closing in on 10 now. Must be at about 10.
I think that part of the question would be better off to be answered at the end of the storm's life.
Well, yes.
And the eye temperature, I'm only seeing just barely in the positives, Nathan. So
Oh, really?
not looking too great on the eye temperature side of things.
Still not too bad. And another question from Hurricane Alton Ebron. Would Tropical Depression 10 become a Category 2 hurricane? Ethan, let me get your thoughts. What do you think the ceiling is on this?
Honestly, I think the ceiling is probably 80 miles an hour, and that might be generous. Personally, I wouldn't even forecast a hurricane, personally.
Goodness me. But
I think it's a little bit crazy that the NHC already forecasted a hurricane. I do think that it can get it briefly, but I do think that this will be...
So it might get to hurricane status. When we look at Franklin right now, it's doing well in bad conditions.
I do have a little bit concerns with that, but I think that this will be weakening as it comes into landfall, personally, with that wind shear.
Well, yes, wind shear is high further north at the moment. Models, I think from what I saw, had it about 20 knots until landfall and then shoots up, as is often the case. But you're right. When they get all the way up to the northern part there, if they do make landfall, north of like, what is it, 29 degrees north, I think, you can get that's when they really start picking up. And almost all storms that make landfall along like Mississippi, Alabama, Florida Panhandle weaken a bit before landfall, with only a few exceptions.
Yeah, so I think that's...
I said it.
Yeah. But I am a bit shocked on the consensus past 48 hours on track guidance. It's a little bit uncertain for the next 2 days, but once the storm gets its track set in stone, once we look at the storm, say 2 days from now, we'll have a much better idea of where the storm's going to go.
Yeah.
But pretty set on the Florida Bend area. Maybe east of where Michael made landfall.
Is it, though? It's a large cone.
It is. So there is still some wiggle room.
And if we just examine that cone once again, you can see that Tampa is still in it, Jacksonville, Panama City, a little bit further west, maybe Destin, I'm not sure. So a significant area there that could fall within.
A lot of more major populations are still in it inland. Atlanta,
Yep.
Charlotte, Raleigh, pretty much every big metro in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Even Virginia Beach is in it, but I think that this storm's going to probably curve out to sea once it gets to the Carolinas.
It's looking more like that, which is interesting. And what do you make of Franklin's forecast now taking it out to sea as well later on?
I think that was a good call. I'm a bit shocked that didn't happen sooner. Although I am a bit shocked that they're forecasting almost a Category 4.
Oh, yes, they are. High-end Category 3 on that forecast right there.
That really trended upwards, but I think that's partially due to Franklin's ahead of the schedule in the short term.
Yeah, I suppose so.
The good thing is, this storm pretty much is only a threat to Bermuda at this point, and the U.S. East Coast with their current problems, but it's a threat for the fishies now, mainly, which is really good.
It's looking like that, yeah. Let's take a look once again. Oh, that's an ad. We were going to take a look at Cancun, but it showed an ad instead. Excellent. That's what we get when we fight to try and show videos. But I can tell you Cancun looks pretty normal right now. And looks like we keep having issues with our connections as well. So that means my webcam will have broken as well, but there we go. So just to reiterate, as a matter of fact, let's just get back here. There's my face that's frozen in time if you want to... But so a summarization of the watches and warnings right now then. So no warnings or watches for Franklin, but for TD10, we have recently issued tropical storm warnings for the Yucatan Peninsula from Tulum to Rio de Gatos on the north coast, including Cozumel, and a tropical storm watch for Pinar del Rio and the Isle of Youth in westernmost Cuba. And I'll read off a few things from the National Hurricane Center. They are saying that the depression is nearly stationary and little overall movement is expected through Sunday. A slow, generally northward motion is expected to begin on Monday, and the center will move into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico by Monday. So let's read out the key messages, because and this is something the NHC have done a lot more in recent years, and very important to take a look at the key messages, and here they are. So, heavy rainfall from Tropical Depression 10 expected along the eastern Yucatan Peninsula. It won't fit on the screen. I'll just read it off. And western Cuba. The heavy rainfall may produce areas of flash and urban flooding, as well as landslides across western Cuba. The depression is forecast to become a tropical storm by Sunday, and tropical storm conditions are expected over portions of the Yucatan Peninsula, where a tropical storm warning is in effect. Tropical storm conditions are possible over portions of western Cuba within the tropical storm watch area. Now, as we know, the depression is forecast to strengthen during the next few days and could become a hurricane over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, bringing a potential of dangerous storm surge, heavy rainfall and strong winds to portions of the west coast of Florida and the Florida Panhandle by the middle of next week. Heavy rainfall also likely to spread into portions of the southeast US by mid to late next week, although it's too soon to specify the exact location and magnitude of these impacts. Residents in these areas should monitor updates to the forecast of the system and ensure they have their hurricane plan in place. And as we know, Ethan, state of emergency already declared.
Absolutely. Just want to point out that the Weather Prediction Center also has for their outlook for Monday right now has a marginal risk of excessive rainfall or flash flooding. Mainly Tampa down towards south of Miami, that general area of Florida near where Ian made landfall. And for their outlook for Tuesday, they have a rather large slight risk going down from Fort Myers up towards the Florida Band area and into inland a little bit into southern Georgia. And that slight risk does continue for the next day as well up into the Carolinas down towards where the storm's going to make landfall at. So a slight risk of flash flooding over the next few days as this system comes on in. Would not surprise me to see maybe some areas of this being upgraded towards a moderate risk of excessive rainfall later on down the line. We'll have to wait and see, though. But that's what the Weather Prediction Center has right now. Nothing for the Storm Prediction Center yet on the tornado side of things. But it would not surprise me come their next Day 3 outlook, which will be issued overnight tonight. Would not surprise me to see them issue a marginal risk for the Florida Bend area for tornadoes.
All right, Ethan, this is interesting. I'm just trying to get more up-to-date imagery. It's just disappeared on me now. Ah, goodness me. But Ethan, it passed me by, but I've actually just discovered that Pagasa are calling Saola, Philippine name Goring, of course, a super typhoon.
What?
Yep, they've called it a super typhoon at this point.
Pretty
Which I
sure
believe
they're
has achieved.
I'm pretty sure they do that now when a storm reaches category 3 or above. They sort of change their designation.
Do they?
Yeah. You can
That's
ask the
interesting.
Philippine team about it.
Wasn't aware.
It's also interesting to note that they forecast this to be a super typhoon on their local scale all the way up to Taiwan.
Yes.
And for those of you who were wondering what are the qualifications for a super typhoon, that's usually, I believe that would be a high-end category 4 with 150-mile-an-hour winds at least.
Well, that's using the J Typhoon Warning Center's 1-minute wind scale. Pagasa uses their own scale, which is just 10-minute winds, and the requirements for super typhoon are ridiculously low 10-minute wind speeds. which is completely
Right.
different from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's 1 minute sustained. Joint Typhoon Warning Center, either way, is up at 120 knots. That's 140 miles an hour, which is what we're at right now. But they do forecast a slight weakening in the next 24 hours down to 120 miles per hour before re-strengthening up to 150 miles an hour. Whenever I looked at this forecast cone this morning, they had it only peaking at a minimal Category 4, which I didn't really get at all.
Yeah.
And they only have it weakening down after Taiwan from 130 miles an hour down to 105. It's gonna be more. It's gonna be less than that by the time it rises in China.
Less than what, sorry?
Less than 105 miles an hour. They have that at day 5.
Oh, no, it could be.
Well, if it takes the track that the JTWC is suggesting, but model trends are suggesting maybe a little bit north of JTWC's forecast later on down the line.
I don't know. Well, if you've just joined us, we're talking about lots of different systems, but two main ones, and we're trying to keep on top of both of them for you. We have Typhoon Saola, Philippine name Goring on the left-hand side, a very powerful typhoon, Category 4, hugging the coast of Isabela province in the Philippines. And on the right-hand side, our newly developed Tropical Depression 10, which is poised to become our next Atlantic tropical storm and possibly hurricane as it heads towards Florida somewhere. But we don't know yet because there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding this. And Mateo Fur asks a question along those lines, saying that they've noticed how uncertain the range is for TD10, and they were wondering what we think is the lowest and highest realistic intensity for the storm.
Well, for me, you heard me earlier say the highest, and that's 80 miles an
80
hour.
miles an hour. I would
Some people think that's low. Some people think that's low. But I'd like to see this storm in 2 days and make a better call then, personally, because there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah.
Absolute lowest for this storm right now? Probably where it is right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking on possibly the lowest we could see this reaching is probably about 50 to 60 miles per hour.
Yep.
But the highest might be around 90 to possibly even 100, but we have no clue.
I was going to say lowest 60 and the highest probably... So it's a tough one, isn't it? You just don't know what might happen over there. If wind shear... Well, consider what it would be if wind shear went down to 0 and you've got those temperatures there. It wouldn't go all the way to Cat 5 because it's
No, it'd be
not
moving
got
too fast.
anywhere near enough time. I don't think it would get to Category 4, so I suppose it would be a Category 3. Very, very high end, but...
Well, you'll be pleased to hear that the HWRF forecast a Category 3, high-end Category 3.
No, I'm not pleased. I want it to downtrend rapidly, please.
So do I.
You know?
Oh, never mind. They forecast a mid-Cat 4, actually. That's nice.
Even worse. Yeah. So there we go. Let's get some...
Not gonna happen, though.
Let's get some more comments. Venti Subterrestrial says, what is your prediction for what name we will make it to this busy Atlantic season? Hey, I tell you what though, if we were talking 2 weeks ago, we were saying it wasn't busy. We're only up to D.
Yeah, it's only been busy in the past week or so.
But it does look like there could be some more on the way, so I don't know. I don't know, Ethan.
It's a hard call, isn't it? I wouldn't really say anything, but I'd say that we'd probably get past the L letter.
Oh yeah.
At least that.
Well, I'll tell you what.
And that-
If
I'll
we
just leave it
get
at that.
if we get to the auxiliary list, I will dress up as a shrimp.
Oh no.
That's not gonna happen.
Hey, Xavier did say he'd wear a hot dog costume with pony forms.
That's me. I said that. I'm wearing a
Well,
hot
that
dog
almost
costume when
happened.
Hone forms.
Uh,
Whenever that happens. Nearly happened the
Imagine-
other week, and I had to
imagine-
get one just in case.
I mean, if you can get
Imagine
92E to
Honey
stall
forms the
for
same time we
20
go into
more
the
degrees.
auxiliary list in the Atlantic.
What's that?
I'd
If you can
say,
get
I'd say
So,
if we go to the, I have a feeling we'll be going to the auxiliary list before Hone forms
yikes.
at this rate.
If you can get 92E to stall for 20 more degrees, it might get the Hone name.
No,
It's not going to do
Ethan.
that, though.
No, Ethan.
You
Bad
got
idea.
robbed later. You got robbed recently.
Yep, we keep hearing about that. We do. All right, let's take a look at some more. Let's get some more visible views of Tropical Depression 10 right now.
Right.
Let's get a super close up on True Color Visible. Just loading it up now. Okay, here it is. So looking good. Nice super close up here of the Yucatan Cancun area, and you can see its center and a little bit of convection blowing up over it right now as well as we get into the very late part of the day. Nightfall not too far away now, and when we were looking at the broader imagery earlier, as a matter of fact, it is showing that there's a lot of convection that's continuing to expand eastwards from the storm right now. You can see it better on this imagery. What's going on with all of that? Lots
I'm
of
not really
convection
entirely sure.
spewing further away from the storm that was over the center once upon a time, and now the center's looking quite bare, but not unhealthy kind of thing. There may be a little dry slot in there, but good rotation, a fair bit of convection, and I certainly expect that we'll see some convective blow-ups overnight.
Which
Yeah.
is this?
Hi,
It
Orlando.
has to
Welcome.
make you. It has to make you wonder, though, if all of that activity extending from western Cuba down Cuba, really over Hispaniola, it does have to make you wonder if that has something to do with Franklin.
What?
Yeah, if you were to follow
I mean,
the line of
not
that would actually go
necessarily.
straight into Franklin.
Does it?
I mean,
Kind of
maybe
does.
just the general upper level flow of the atmosphere when it comes to the moisture aspect, perhaps, and precipitable water. But the main reason why I believe the cloud tops have been waning a bit over now TD10 is mainly due to the diurnal minimum, diurnal maximum cycles that happen, especially with these fledgling systems. Yeah, it's DMAX still hasn't happened yet, so it'll be interesting to see then. But right now, at least off of microwave, it has a nice structure. I mean, that's all that's going for. As long as it's able to maintain that, then it's just a matter of time.
Welcome, Orlando. Nice to have you on with us.
nice to talk to you guys again.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Atlantic so far this season, then?
I think it's just like the per usual. I mean, I'm not sure how this season's exactly going to conclude once we look back on everything in late November. Hopefully, if things quiet down by then. But so far, I'd say it's just on par of August. Usually, late August is when you start seeing things perk up. You start seeing tropical storms develop. I mean, prior to the 20th or so, August 10th, most people were about to cancel August. People were talking about maybe August might have no storms, and it's just like, well, it's something that is said is a watched pot never boils, and in that instance, that first 2 weeks of August went by, nothing happened, and everything just blew up out of nowhere. So we'll see how that goes.
Mateo first says, do you think TD10 could impact Tampa? Well,
Tampa's going to get impacts either way.
they've got
Yeah,
about, I think, a 30% chance of storm conditions.
It's about guarantee that they'll see some type of showers and thunderstorms related to the system. Now, when it comes to track how close it'll get, there's no real definitive answer, at least not yet. Probably have a good idea on Monday, maybe. But even then, I mean, we saw with Ian how things went, and even with Charlie many years ago in '04, these systems that track this way with the weakness in the ridge and a trough coming down in the eastern United States, it's a little tedious to map out where exactly it's going to go. But what can be said is you should prepare accordingly. You prepare for the worst and just hope for the best. I mean, that's could be said because these types of things like to ramp up very quickly.
It is worth noting that this is not going to be an Ian situation at all. I'd say this is going to be more like Hermine in 2016, personally.
I did think about that.
That would be something that I would relate this to. But just want to point out regarding the Tampa impacts, extrapolating the National Hurricane Center's forecasted wind field, it does appear that Tampa is forecast to get the tropical storm wind field, albeit barely.
Okay.
So maybe some
Oh,
squally
man.
conditions. Definitely no good surf.
Alright, I got to apologise to everyone at the bottom of the screen there. It's showing TD10 with 940 millibars. Well, it isn't. It's 1005-ish. Not 940. That's
that
a
would have been
misprint.
something.
Misprint, everyone. There's a live view from Cancun right now. It's getting dark there, as you can see. Looks like there's some people in the water there. They're under tropical storm warnings, so they shouldn't be. But clouds there in the distance, all associated with this tropical depression right now. But to be fair, there aren't really any strong winds occurring by the looks of things. Of course, this is just 30 miles per hour right now.
Was just about to mention the Cancun airport right now is only reporting 4 knots of wind right now.
Oh, yikes. Well,
And
can't
they're
really
pretty
blame
close
me
to
in the
the
water
center.
then.
No, and this storm center is just offshore, so
Yeah.
it is. If it has a wind field, it's going to be probably on the eastern side, and it's going to be fairly small.
Yeah, I think the indications that helped with the upgrade in the first place to tropical depression was because of those convective bursts on the eastern half of the system. I mean, it's kind of on par with a lot of these forms that form with gyres. Usually it's the eastern half that happens to have the most wind and rain, at least at first.
Another view of it there, and I don't know, it's hard to tell sometimes, but it does appear as though that rotation is still in the process of tightening up.
No good. Is there any radar available right now?
I was also about to ask that. I didn't look at radar yet, so I'll have a little look for that whilst we look at some
I can get radar out of Key
side-by-side.
West.
Yeah, you can get Key West, but I think we might have Cancun. Let's have a look.
I think there's radar from Mexico, but I haven't seen any good quality depictions anyways.
No, Key West is picking up the activity over Cuba, and it is a lot of heavy rainfall over in that area. Maybe even over the Isle of Youth a little bit. But overall, it misses the whole storm part that we wanted to see.
I mean, something I was just thinking about, the flooding potential. I mean, at least for the far western tip of Cuba, around that area, about the flooding potential, since the storm's going to be probably just meandering around there for the next 48 hours with all that convection on the eastern side. I'm surprised there isn't really much big discussion about that, unless there isn't too much substantial rainfall, at least as of yet.
I don't think the rainfall forecast over there is forecast to be substantial. I could be wrong.
Alt Sir says, could the cone for TD10 go more south later on, like towards central Florida?
No,
I mean,
I think that the landfall at this point is pretty much set to be along the Gulf Coast.
Already?
Farthest south that I can really see the storm making landfall is probably just north of Tampa, up near Homassa Springs. That's probably as far south as I can see this making landfall.
I don't buy it, Ethan. I don't think I can be certain about that track until the stalling ends.
It's very tedious setup with the whole weakness with the trough in the eastern United States. I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, I wouldn't take out Tampa Bay or even Sarasota down to Venice Beach off the table as of yet. But right now, the likelihood, I mean, the general consensus is somewhere along the Gulf Coast, probably around the Big Bend region, but areas outside the cone should stay paying attention because things change all the time.
Once again, a
One thing that-
reminder that the cone is not 100% inclusive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing that is for sure, though, the storm's going to make landfall in Florida. Not much is certain.
Looks like. But what if it did a Marco?
I don't know. That would be crazy.
Oh my god.
Good kind of crazy. If it did dissipate before it reached land, but that ain't happening, guys.
Marco was something.
And one also good thing is this storm is going to be picking up movement as it comes in. So the storm's going to be moving at a pretty good pace when it comes in. Think of like a movement speed, kind of like Hurricane Michael.
I don't really like it though.
Not
Stop
saying that the
those
intensity is gonna be-
comparisons. Stop it.
I don't
Well,
really
not
like
saying that
the
intensity is gonna be like
idea.
Michael.
The situation overall is just really bad though because there's only, I guess, roughly 72 hours before things get really bad where you can't really do anything to prep safely anyways. So it's just a really bad situation when storms like this happen where it's just you only have 3 days. As a normal citizen, most people don't really take things seriously until there's a name or it gets to hurricane status. People like question things prior to that point. So it's really concerning, especially with how many misses have happened around the Big Bend region. I'm concerned how people are going to react and how serious people are going to take this.
And as we've been talking now, we're looking at water vapor imagery of both 10L and Franklin on the right-hand side, fighting dry air by the looks of things. More questions, and we haven't gone through that many yet. We've been talking quite a lot, but we'll try and get through some. Hurricane Altony Bron says, does Tropical Depression 10 have any lightning in its bands of the storm? And will there be a recon flight in the storm?
I think there's one in there right now, actually.
Is there?
There's definitely lightning.
No, recon right now is en route to Franklin, and
Yeah, they're only
yes,
starting tomorrow,
there is
aren't
actually there is actually a plane in Franklin right now. Actually,
Yeah, they're only starting on 10L tomorrow, aren't they?
I think.
Yeah,
So.
they have
Let's
they have
see.
basically all hands on deck for tomorrow.
Let's see if I can see where this recon flight is.
Feel free to show us.
I think this is it. Yes, I found it.
You found it.
So this is where the inbound flight is into
Alright.
Franklin right now. This is not the one that's in it right now. This is just the inbound. This is where it is right now. This is live.
All
Took
right.
off from St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and is flying out to Franklin somewhere in this area. And they'll be in the storm pretty soon. And there's another plane down here in this area. I don't know if that's appearing, but I don't think it is.
How far from the storm is it?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But there is actually a plane in Franklin right now. They just measured what looks to be. What are these readings? They're all over the place.
Really?
They've got flight level winds of around 60 knots, and SFMRs of not even hurricane force.
Oh my.
But they're all over the place. So something is definitely up with it. The rain rates are all over the place as well. You can see on this graph.
Here it is on
Look
the
at that.
mesoscale. Oh wait, this graph from Ethan. Oh my.
Yeah, look at that graph.
Can you try
can
to
see-
there might be
explain
something
that
wrong with
to
the
us?
equipment.
Yeah. So you can see here. What you mainly want to look at is here.
Top left panel.
Yeah, top left panel. And this indicates right here. You can clearly see that the winds absolutely dropped, and this indicates the eye.
Yep.
This is when they pass through the eye, and you can see here, max flight level winds they got was around 60 knots, which I think would reduce to ground intensity around 60 miles an hour.
That's low.
Just using those flight level winds. So what you want to do is you want to take this time here, and you can see that they pass through the eye around 2213Z. And if you go over here to this graph, you can see here, right here's when they pass through the eye, and highest SFMRs that they got only look to be 40 knots.
What?
But you can see the rain rate which is this pink line, it's all over the place. So something is definitely going on with these readings.
Man.
And they just released a drop sonde,
Okay.
which got a pressure of 979 millibars,
Okay.
which is 3 millibars lower than what they have right now. So it does appear that the pressure is dropping.
Well, I saw in chat earlier.
Not sure what the winds
People can
are.
write anything in chat, but someone said earlier that they got 975.
They might have. I haven't been watching the recon as closely as I probably should have.
Well, there's a lot going on, isn't there? So.
Yeah. And if you want to see where this inbound flight is, that's relatively where it is.
All right. Yep.
You can see it's not that far of a distance from there to Franklin.
Fairly close. Well then, if you've just joined us, this is the scene that we have right now. Our two big hitters at the moment. Of course, Franklin is also an important system to track, but Saola on the left-hand side, a typhoon, very powerful Category 4 along the coast of eastern Luzon, Isabela province right now. Signal 3 warnings in effect there. Still gradually moving south, maybe south-southeast now. And 140 mile per hour winds, 225 kilometers per hour sustained. Bagasa are calling it a super typhoon. On the right hand side we have Tropical Depression 10, which formed, the National Hurricane Center called it at 5 p.m. Eastern, and that's 30 miles per hour tropical depression. They're expecting it to become a hurricane before striking the Florida Panhandle Bend area, most likely. And we were just showing earlier on some radar imagery as well in the Cancun area, the center of this depression. Not the best radar, but it is radar. And the thing you'll notice the most there is that rotation. Ethan?
I'd be curious to hear your predictions and thoughts on Idali, and I just...
Oh, you didn't.
Saola.
Is what you mean.
Saola. I was talking about Saola.
I thought you pre-named. Thought it was even worse.
No, I did a little bit. I was
my predictions
being an idiot.
I don't know, to be quite honest, my predictions on Saola. So I'm going to draw upon some other info, and I'll get that loaded up in a minute, and I'll tell you. In the meantime, let's see if we've got some more questions. We're here for at least 2 hours, just entering our second hour now. Nice of you to join us, by the way. And please send in your comments if you like. And let's see. So, Hanmadio says, Saola has been moving southeast recently. When will it make a move on east and north? I'll tell you in a minute. Canadian says, thankful that Franklin is forecasted to curve out to sea. Model runs a few days ago had it either impacting Nova Scotia or Newfoundland. I remember that, yep. And definitely tired of the hurricane impacts. I'm trying to catch up with some other comments as well. Could TD10 likely follow recent trends where a storm forms in the Caribbean or travels through the Caribbean and makes a major impact on the Gulf Coast? And when we were talking earlier about what we thought our lowest and highest winds were from this storm, I was thinking about Hermine, and I think, as you mentioned that earlier, I think it's a decent thing to compare it to. I don't think it's going to be a major hurricane landfall.
No, I don't think either. I think that the So I still think that the highest that it can get to is probably mid-cat 1.
And could Orlando see any impacts from Tropical Depression 10? Some rainfall, I would imagine. But
I would
Yeah,
also
that's
point
pretty much
out,
gonna
yeah.
be it.
I'd also
Who's
point out
that?
as well.
Patrick?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Before I want to point out, yeah, heavy rainfall definitely going to be a threat as well. Also, this is a little bit of uncertainty, but there definitely will exist the potential for outer rain bands to spread inland, and given potentially a jet interaction from the jet stream that's going to be basically moving right over 10. I guess we can say 10 for right now.
Yeah.
There will likely be some sort of tornado threat along the Florida Peninsula, basically stretching from the Orange Osceola County line, basically up and down the west coast, where the outer rain band's basically on set. That is a little bit of uncertainty right now, and I think our main focus right now is going to be heavy rain and storm surge impacts, although the tornado threat is definitely going to be there, as you've seen with previous tropical cyclones, especially potentially one of significant magnitudes. To an extent of how significant it will be is still uncertain, but still definitely a potent threat for the Florida Peninsula, especially on the West Coast. I know that the governor of Florida has declared a state of emergency for 32 counties along the West Coast. So if you are along those 32 counties that were declared a new state of emergency, you need to be pretty much preparing right now for potential hurricane impacts.
All right, let's have a little chat about Saola then. On the left-hand side, Ethan, one or two new frames coming in. It is not looking so hot compared to earlier.
No, it is not.
Let's take a look at the latest multi-model diagnostic from RAM, and I love these, by the way. They're very good.
So
Except
do I.
when they're not up to date. Is this up to date? Some of this isn't. I don't even know if this is up to date. I can't tell. The HWRF part of it is not, because it's still from the 23rd, but I think I can't even tell. I think that is somewhat. But anyway, wind shear is going to be relatively low for the duration. They expect that turn to happen at any time, and as you can see, it's probably moved a little bit further west and south of where it was expected to go. Sea surface temperatures are good for the whole period. Relative humidity is also good. So those are the vitals. It's all looking very good for Typhoon Saola. I think the main potential problem is itself becoming its own worst enemy by causing upwelling. But we really expect that eastward turn to happen quite soon. And that loop that we've been looking at in the last few runs and updates looks to be getting looser, if that makes sense. A more gradual looping motion rather than that tight loop that we were thinking of earlier on. And we'll be able to take a look at the brand new GFS run in 10 minutes. So wait for that and we'll have a look at what it's got to say. A few questions here whilst we keep looking at these two storms side by side, and feel free to make your own and send them in. We had, well, one or two predictions being sent in there, interestingly. Dark Steve says, will Saola be a Category 5? It is possible on that second peak, as it nears the Batanes Islands or Taiwan. I would say that is possible. And how about Damri? Will it be a fish typhoon? Alright then, we'll be able to talk about Damri for about 10 seconds here. You can see it on that middle panel at the top there. That's what Damri is looking like at the moment. And it's probably just short of typhoon status. But it's looking quite decent on that imagery. It will be getting very close to Japan, very quickly, speedily moving. And then it looks like it will recurve at the very last minute, just before giving the coast some tropical storm force winds. So that's been pretty well forecasted, and looks like it's staying the case. Anyone else with any thoughts in our chat about Damri? No, I didn't think so. Okay then, let's take some more comments. What analogues could you think of for Saola? Ethan, help? I'm trying to think. I'm going to have a little look. I can't think of any offhand, really, that take this kind of track for analogs. So I'm just going to do a little bit of on-the-fly research here and see what storms sort of did a loop. I don't recall any. Apart from some of those crazy storms like what was the one in 2009 that went from one side of the Philippines to the other and then back again and then back again. But that's a different kind of crazy than the one we're talking about right now. Just looking at really strong storms, I don't think there's any that did a loop like this in the strongest, in relation to strong storms. There is no, there's nothing that compares to it, to be honest. Certainly not in this storm's position where it is right now. Maybe it happened further out to sea, and you sometimes see it late season as well, but in the middle of the season like this and making tracks like that, yeah, it's quite unusual. Go.
I do want to point out here that a buoy off to the southeast of Tropical Depression 10 has recorded a minimal central pressure of 1,004.7 millibars.
Well, that's about par for the course, I think.
Yep, live discussion shows it right there. This is a buoy southeast of the current Tropical Depression 10, and they have logged as of I believe this is 0Z, or not, or 00 Greenwich Mean Time. They have logged 1,004.7 millibars. So if you do round up, it's right around a 1,005 millibar reading from the southeast.
Well, that's impossible because GMT is currently 11:12.
It says in the graphic here, courtesy of NOAA/NWS/NDBC.
Oh.
It says right at the end there, August 27th, 00 GMT.
Well, that's in the future. Oh, I see what's happened. I see what's happened to your image, and I'll explain it in just a second when I get it up on the screen myself here. But thank you for sending that in. I don't think it's... I mean, 1004.67, something like that. Here it is. So, a little bit of confusion there because the chart goes up to 0 on the 27th, but the line doesn't. So we're not quite there yet, so that's okay. And that's some software that I keep trying to download and it fails and whatever. Anyways, so interesting how that's been going. Down to 1004.6-ish, something like that. So yeah, interesting. Certainly deepening. Let's go back to some of our other imagery. There's the last bit of light there starting to drop out. And off it goes. Yes, I know about that bar, Patrick. Last time it aired, I had to apologize for that. I didn't, you know. When 10L comes up, it says it's got a pressure of 940 millibars, and that is a typo, everyone. So, unfortunately, I can't change that whilst we're hot on the air here. Let's go back to our multi-screen. There is Saola on the left-hand side and Tropical Depression 10 on our right. Live, pretty much, and we're, of course, live here. The imagery is near live. There was a comment there. Oh, just this. YouTube's just... Oh, there it is. James Veltri says, did you see earlier the HWRF, HMON, and HAFS were all showing a Category 4 for 10L? I did.
I definitely think that given the
Outlandish.
uncertainties right now between all the models and whatnot, in terms of intensity, I think track guidance, they are becoming more increasingly confident on a more eastern Big Bend of Florida landfall or somewhere along the somewhere along the peninsula. But I do think that given the conditions in the Gulf of Mexico, with very, very high SSTs, although oceanic heat content is definitely not extreme to extents, I definitely do think that if Tropical Depression 10 can organize better and enter into those favorable conditions, as shear is going to drop off a little bit over the next day or two, I definitely do think that this storm could potentially go even further than Cat 1. It just really depends on where the storm goes and basically where the storm overlaps with the most favorable conditions. But I definitely think that if that storm can get a well-defined core and can organize better in those conditions, I definitely think it can make a run for a peak higher than Cat 1, personally speaking. Because the Gulf of Mexico is, to put it in simplest words, very hot.
It is indeed. Just waiting for tropical cyclone activity.
Exactly.
Let's go over the warnings then right now once again if you've just joined us. Tropical storm warning for this newly formed depression. Tropical storm warning for the Yucatan Peninsula from Tulum to Rio Lagatos, including Cozumel. Tropical storm watch for Pinar del Rio and the Isle of Youth in Cuba. As you can see here, it's expected to become a hurricane and could make landfall at that intensity. NHC are currently forecasting a peak of 75 miles per hour. This is Typhoon Saola, and you can see its track forecast from Pagasa and their warnings, which currently look like this. Signal 3 warnings are in effect for a small part of coastal Isabela province, and let me just get that specifically for you. It is I assume the sub-provinces of Diviacan and Palanan. Signal 3. Signal 2 warnings for large parts of eastern Cagayan and Isabela and the northern tip of Aurora province there. And Signal 1 warnings for large parts of the rest of northern Luzon, the Batanes Islands, the Babian Islands, extending westwards to eastern Ilocos Norte, Abra, Mountain Province, eastern Benguet, and eastern Nueva Ecija, and also extending to central Aurora Province, the Palillo Islands, and the Calaguas Islands, that small one right at the bottom there. That's Typhoon Goring, the local name in the Philippines, Saola, the international name. Those are the two storms with warnings in effect right now, but we also have other action. We have, where is it? Is it this? There it is. There's Franklin at hurricane strength right now, but some curious recon readings. I don't know if Patrick has any more information on that or thoughts. Have you seen those? Maybe not. But recon.
I definitely saw the recon. I believe that they found a 970. I don't know. Let me correct myself real quick. I believe they found 174 extrapolated pressure.
Okay.
I believe. Let me scroll back up because I believe I found it somewhere. Yeah, it's as of 2213Z, which is about an hour ago when recon was going through, they found estimations of a 970 4.8 extrapolated pressure
Right.
at 23.7 degrees north. I'll send it in live discussion just so I can show what I'm talking about.
Rounds to 975 then.
Yep, right about here from about an hour ago or so.
Okay. I think we've also got Amethyst on board right now as well. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, nice to have you.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on either of the two main features that we're covering tonight?
Not really. I don't have a lot of information right now, so I'm trying to gather most of that.
Sure. Well, the latest information from earlier was that Typhoon Saola was just 56 kilometers from Palanan, and that Tropical Depression 10, the center, was located just 69 kilometers from Cancun. So both storms very close to land areas.
Good to know.
Yep, so there they are on our split screen. Let's see if there's some more comments with us right now. XZ's channel says, is Saola suffering from cold water due to it being in the same place for a while? I don't think it'll have reached that point yet, but I will grab some the Force 13 view from our website and see if we can take a look at what the sea surface temperatures look like for it. Just going to get that real quick. Nope, no sea surface temperature problems at all. Here it is. As you can see, temperatures over 30 degrees all around that area. It's not the case of the temperatures being closer near land. They're not. They're around 30 to 31 degrees where the storm is at this present time. And they'll actually drop a little bit as it moves further out to sea in the coming days. And to be honest, it's probably over the warmest it will get for the storm, unless it moves into the South China Sea properly. If it goes on to strike Taiwan, those temperatures will only get to about 30 degrees, but nonetheless, it's very warm all the way round, and looking very good for Saola in terms of its prevailing conditions around the storm. As I said before, it's just itself that could cause itself a problem. And once again, 140 miles per hour on that one. We had a question earlier about whether we'll be doing an automated stream, because I mentioned that earlier. So this is how it's going to go. We're going to be here for the rest of this hour, then we're going to finish up, and then we're going to kick off. Well, it's going to take me about an hour to set it up because of all the activity going on, but then we'll have an automated stream running, probably from the 8 PM advisory from the NHC, or 7 PM Central, and then you'll be able to watch the storms progress throughout the night on our automated function, and until our next updates and further events tomorrow. We'll also have an update on another video update on Saola at 3 AM UTC, which is about, trying to work this out quickly, I think it's 11 AM Philippine time. Speaking of which, we should have some visibles now, visible imagery of what things are looking like in the Western Pacific, so I'll go and show you that as well, and then it will be time for the models, everyone. Uh-oh.
Just a little sneak preview. GFS has 92E, almost making it to Hawaii.
Oh no, it's getting closer each time. Here we go, some new latest visible imagery from just about 20 minutes ago, showing both Western Pacific storms active right now. You might not be able to see those outlines. Let's just turn them on, and you'll see Japan there up north, and then obviously there is Tropical Storm Damre, which is looking pretty good, and it goes to show how fast it's been moving, because last time, blink and you miss it really, because last time I saw it, it was still near the Mariana Islands, and it's now not far from Japan, Ethan.
I'm actually just working on that now for the TWO that we do every single day. I've actually fixed it as a low-end typhoon, actually,
right.
based on a microwave pass that showed a complete eye wall around the
Wow.
entire storm.
Impressive. There we go. And there's Saola right now as well on visible. New images there.
And there's a new microwave pass, as I say that, on Damre.
Oh, and even on visible, Saola not looking so hot there on that visible imagery. What do you think it is? An eyeball replacement? Dry air
no.
intrusion?
No, I actually think that's land interaction due to Taiwan.
The Philippines.
Taiwan.
Yeah, downsloping.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure.
But I've kept it as a category 4 for the TWO as well.
Meteo4 says, do you think it's possible for the wind shear to let up and allow TD10 to intensify? It will, and it already is. I mean, there's not much wind shear in the first place. It's only going to be about 20 knots for the duration up until at least close to its landfall in Florida, which is moderate. And National Hurricane Center expect in the models that the storm will gradually intensify under those conditions, and many of them do. So in just a moment, we'll go to what a lot of people find their favourite section of our tropical weather bulletins at most nights, the GFS model, and we'll take a look at the whole thing when I get all of that loaded. In the meantime, let's see if we've got some more questions. And, well, this is interesting, Ethan. Prince Jack Python Carbon says, I see Dam Ray has been weakening trend and structures of this current storm went rugged.
The structure on it visible imagery has a little bit, but that might be due to the storm's massive outflow. But considering a microwave pass earlier that showed a complete eye wall, it's probably still a typhoon, but barely.
So you think it was stronger earlier?
No, I think that it only reached 75 miles per hour earlier, based on center microwave pass. But when you account for wind lag, then yeah. I mean the microwave pass that showed the complete eye wall, that was only 7.5 hours ago.
Right. Cyclonism says, is there a possibility of interaction between Tropical Depression 10 and Hurricane Franklin after landfall? Not really. Franklin will be way ahead of it.
Yeah, by the time that the TD10 gets to its day 5 point, Franklin's going to be up near Newfoundland. It's going to be long gone. I'd be more inclined to say that there's going to be an interaction between Invest 92L and Franklin.
Oh yes, actually.
And that's probably going to kill off 92L.
Yep.
I really don't see that forming.
Beef Plays says, after a month of Doxury in Abra, we're still recovering and the damages were even worsened by Saola. Abra there in central Luzon. So apparently, I don't know what exactly they mean by that, but clearly not a fun time. And is Typhoon Saola moving southerly, south direction, or is it not moving? I would say right now it's south-southwest, south-southeast right now.
Southeast?
Yep. What, you don't think
have a
so?
look. No, I think that the general movement vector is just ever so slightly west of due south.
Oh, actually it is. Maybe that was earlier. You're right, it is still slightly west of south. Not Mr. Popular says we'll be around for the 8 PM advisory and for recon updates. We'll be finishing in half an hour, so we won't be there, but we will be setting up an automated stream, hopefully by the 8 PM advisory, where we can keep up to date on all of the active storms as we watch them at any time. But no doubt we'll have more updates throughout the course of the next few days, obviously. 10L will have updates probably tomorrow morning and evening. And for Saola, we'll have an update in about 3 hours. And probably again in about 15 hours or something along those lines. I don't know. Let's see if we've got some more questions. Feel free to send them in. Could TD10 strengthen into a major hurricane?
There's always the off chance that it goes above and beyond, obviously. But the chances with this system are quite low.
And finally, before we look at the models, will Franklin and Indalia tag team Bermuda like in the NavGem model? Oh God.
No.
I don't think that's going to happen. For one thing, if they do interact, I believe I think Idalia is probably will likely get killed off over land before it even gets out into the ocean. But I could see a combined rainfall event, probably over the ocean, but not unlike Harold and Hillary did when their rain bands kind of combined over the interior Southwest United States.
All right, then let's take a look at the models, or at least the GFS model on our software here. Okay, then
Can
here's
I make a prediction here before you go on to it?
yes.
Cat 4 medium range in the West Pack.
Do you know
I
that
haven't
for
seen it.
sure? You
I haven't seen the model run myself, but that's just a guess that I'm making.
Okay. And unfortunately, I just realised that that was the last model run, so I've got to load it all up again. So it'll be a few minutes here until we get the models.
I've got it here.
God damn it, Ethan.
No, it's going to be here. Sorry, Ethan. Or is it? Oh no, it did load. Oh, pardon me, it did load. Excellent. Great, we've got it. Just waiting to get to it here. Right, let's see how things go. So, first of all, let's look at Franklin. Already an established tropical cyclone. There it is. GFS initializes it as barely a hurricane, which might be the right answer given what Recon are finding. But what happens next? Well, off it goes. Let's just play the animation. Becomes a very powerful hurricane there. Category 3 was Bermuda. Let me just mark out Bermuda before we go any further here. Bermuda is so hard to see on this imagery. It is there. Watch Bermuda and see how close the storm gets. Will they get tropical storm force winds as Franklin comes up from the south? There it is. Major hurricane. Could be a category 4 even on that GFS. And they get tropical storm force winds, possibly 50 mile an hour there, maybe a little bit higher than that at a push. And then Franklin's moving off towards the northeast, continuing the run now. There it goes, staying strong. Very high latitude, staying strong. Post-tropical by that point, of course, but still contains winds of over 100 miles per hour as it literally about to reach the southern tip of Greenland and affects large parts of Greenland with strong winds. Thankfully, hardly anyone lives there. Now, on to 10L. GFS doesn't look like it's very fond of it initially there. The initialization appears to be quite poor. What happens though? Well, it certainly starts to look better. That looks like a track sort of over Cozumel maybe, and then hooking round. Oh no, it's gone back south again. It's gone up there. Oh dear, a messy track. And then it continues, and then it's sloping up that direction and strengthens there. Just strengthening quite a bit at the end there. What's that strength? Hold on, let me go back to the beginning and try and get the exact timestamp there. Just watch it again, getting closer and closer. Oh. Something, we saw that, didn't we? It had a big shade of yellow there. I'm trying to capture that, and it won't let me. Oh, we've missed it. Well, probably a Category 1 landfall, but quickly weakening after that by the looks of things, and then up the US East Coast and broadening out and dying off very, very quickly after that. Okay, good. Any thoughts from the team so far? No, excellent. Now, longer range we were looking at, possibly Cape Verde. So a little system here, looks like it might try to develop. That's the 30th of August. 31st. And the 1st of September, not really doing much there, is it? And then let's go to super long range. There's a storm there that forms in the end and becomes a hurricane. Look where that's going. Odd track. Very odd track in the eastern Atlantic, but that is quite far in that model run. Very far out. That's pretty much the Scilly range, but nothing else, nothing in the Gulf. Oh, yes there is. I'm sorry, I forgot. GFS has had this little thing forming in the Caribbean for a couple of runs now. There it is again. An attempted tropical storm south of Hispaniola, and it looks like it succeeds just as it touches Honduras on the 2nd of September. GFS has been saying this for a little while now, but no other models agree. Any thoughts from the team?
On what, sorry?
A potential tropical storm in the Central Caribbean next week.
What?
It
I see
actually
it.
survives into the East Pac, I think. Or it feeds an East Pac storm.
Yeah, a little one along the coast, medium to long range.
Yep. No, not medium to long range. It makes landfall on the 2nd. That's
I'm talking
6
about the
days.
East Pac portion.
Oh yeah, the East Pac is long range. Let's watch this system that's forming though in the East Pac. There it is. Tropical storm. Looks like it doesn't get a hurricane. And not quite getting to Hawaii. A little bit further. Looks like it has got slightly closer, but yeah,
The shield's active.
late recurvature. The shield is active. So that system in the Atlantic looks like it feeds an East Pacific system there that hugs the coast of Mexico for quite a while. That's in the very long range. But overall, to be honest with you, after Franklin and 10L, a fairly sedate tropics by the looks of things.
Yeah. This was pretty expected for these regions. Once all of this activity sort of moves out, I mean we've got the thing emerging off of Africa, but that's really about it. Once 92L moves off and gets absorbed by Franklin moves off, 10L does its thing, and 92E goes off into who knows where it's going to go. Once these move out, the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific should be pretty quiet for a week or two. But I think once we get to mid to late September, I think we're going to see an uptick in activity over in these portions of the world once again.
Western Pacific initializing Saola there from the GFS at about 110 miles per hour. And interestingly, it initializes Damri at 90 miles per hour, Ethan.
What?
Yes. That's a what moment?
What?
Initializes Damri at 90 miles per hour. Now, in the previous GFS run, it had an enormous third typhoon forming in this big gap here, the current invest. We'll watch that in a moment. First, let me just show you exactly what happens with Damri and just how close it gets before it decides, oh, I'm going to change my mind. There it is. And category 1 throughout that whole period by the looks of things. Don't know if that will happen, but I just find that funny. No tropical storm force winds for the east coast of Japan despite just how close it gets. So, Saola. Now, this is obviously, again, going to be a big, complicated thing. How strong does it get? Doesn't even resolve its eye properly by the looks of things, but it's making that curve pretty straightforward, then northerly, then westerly, and then really strong just before it impacts Taiwan. How strong is that? GFS sometimes low balls as well, 123. It's going to be stronger than that, possibly. Maybe not at that exact point. Taiwan landfall, and then into China as a category 1, possibly.
Let me pull up the GFS run myself. That way I can see what the pressure is on Saola.
Now then, what happens next?
Max pressure I'm seeing is 934 millibars, Nathan.
934, pretty decent. Certainly category 4. Right then, watch for this enormous typhoon. Does the GFS still have it being really big and strong? Well, it's certainly big. There it is, and another satellite storm to its east. Now, does it get very strong? Yes, it does. Oh my goodness,
I
look at
figured it
that.
would.
That is some pretty crazy stuff there. That's the 2nd of September with winds of 125 miles per hour, probably stronger. And it keeps going. That is a beast and a half.
Oh my goodness.
In the previous model run, it had it down to 918, Ethan. So what does it say now?
925 this run.
925. So not as low as last.
Only 7 days out.
Massive landfall on
And
Kyushu and east.
947 into Japan. 947.
Man. Really, really big.
With another storm forming off towards its east, or that satellite storm still being alive.
Yep, there it is. And then another storm forming behind that. And then what on earth's going on?
What is that satellite storm's track?
Oh, yeah, it keeps going that whole way.
What is that track?
Impressive. So that's the Western Pacific during that period. Quick look for the Indian Ocean. Shouldn't be anything. Well, there's a little swirly thing towards the end there, but GFS is quite good at doing that in the long range. I don't think that will form. But that's a look at the models. Well, actually, no, not fully. Let's look at precipitation out to 168 hours, which is 7 days. And take a look at how much we're expecting in all of these areas. So, first of all, from 10L's track. Wrong button. Cancun then. Let's see, 3.4 inches there. Cozumel over 5 inches. That's 125 millimeters. The western tip of Pinar del Rio, around 3 to 4 inches, maybe 100 millimeters. But if the storm does track over land, the eastern side there could get some very high amounts. At sea at the moment, it's projecting 12 inches. Over parts of Cuba, some higher amounts not inland, but further along the coast. 3.5 inches there, 2.4 at Havana. Florida Keys look fairly quiet, 1 inch in Key West. Same too for places like Marco Island and Naples, 1.4 inches there. Further north towards Cape Coral and Fort Myers, 1 to 2 inches. Tampa Bay area, getting close to 4 inches there on that forecast. Further north around Cedar Key, 2.9 inches. And then the largest amounts near the landfall zone, 13 inches at sea. Apalachicola around 7 there, and further in that indentation there, 6.1 inches. Tallahassee somewhere around here, getting close to 5 inches. Up through into southern Georgia, 5 inches, maybe 6 inches in a few spots. And also into the Carolinas, that will be getting a lot of rain from this too, by the looks of things. Currently projecting 9 inches south of Charlotte and 7 inches not far from Raleigh. What do you think about those numbers, Ethan?
Really interesting. Just want to point out real quick, we've got another pass recon-wise on Franklin. They got 70 to 75 knot flight level winds and SFMRs of around 70 knots.
Okay, better. And look at the rainfall from the Western Pacific systems. Lots and lots and lots of it. First of all, real enhancement of rainfall in Mindoro in the Philippines, first of all. 32 inches on that forecast, 800 millimeters. Similar situation for other parts of western Luzon, 14 inches. And even Manila, the capital, getting up towards 8 inches on that forecast. That is 200 millimeters and could be quite dangerous. Along the eastern coast, near where the storm is right now, similar amounts, 8 to 9 inches there. And on the western coast of the Philippines, maybe 4 or 5. The Batanes Islands for the second pass could get up towards 12 inches, 300 millimeters. And once again, another real hot spot for Taiwan. If indeed the storm makes landfall there, we're looking at 30 inches there. That is 750 millimeters. Extremely high amounts of rainfall for the mountains on the east coast of Taiwan. Thankfully, a lot of that west coast area really shielded. Some areas not even getting 1 inch on that forecast. Southwestern area around Kaohsiung City, about 8 inches, 200 millimeters. And for the coast of China, around Xiamen and northeastwards towards Fuzhou, around 14 inches possible. That's 350 millimeters, and a little bit lower further south. And some higher amounts all the way up the coast towards Shanghai, 8 inches there, 4 inches, and over Shanghai itself 3 inches on that forecast, 75 millimeters. Unclear what the rain amounts will be from this big boy over here, but from Damri, not very much at all. Japan over the next 7 days will only get mild amounts of rain, reaching maybe 3 inches over some mountains, but that is not going to be storm related. So the takeaways there, some parts of the Philippines will get very large amounts of rain, Taiwan really on alert, and also the southeastern part of China. That's all of the models right now. Sort of feel like we should have a little segue there. Anyways, back to looking at both storms, both major storms that we have side by side. This is Typhoon Saola on the left-hand side, and Tropical Depression 10L on the right, which we should have a National Hurricane Center update for shortly. Can't speak. Indeed, we already do. Tropical Depression meandering over the Yucatan Channel. As of 7 p.m, they're still giving it 30 mile per hour winds and a pressure of 1005 millibars, moving northwest at 1 miles an hour. 1 mile an hour.
Yeah, they've changed the latitude and longitude from 21.1 north to 21.2 north.
Amazing.
Wow, so drastic.
Amazing.
And from 86.1 west to 86.2. So drastic.
Very quick movement.
Looking at Saola, though, big break in the northern eye wall.
Oh. Yeah, a little bit. That was what I was talking about earlier. Keep watching that. Let's just go to some more satellite imagery of the storm whilst I read some of these warnings. Or information, I should say. New information on... I mean, when you look at that satellite imagery, you would be forgiven for thinking that it's moving southwest, but NHC, northwest at that update. So, tropical storm warning watches and warnings haven't changed with this advisory. Warning still in effect for the Yucatan Peninsula from Tulum to Rio Legatus, including Cozumel. Let's look at the cone and see if that's updated yet. It won't have changed very much if it has. Yes, it has. I didn't notice any change at all. Of course, they don't update the actual forecast points at intermediate advisories, which is what this is. Tropical storm watch for Pinar del Rio to the Isle of Youth in Cuba. And interest in Florida should monitor the progress of this system. The center of tropical depression 10 located near latitude 21.2 north, longitude 86.2 west. The depression is nearly stationary and little overall movement is expected through Sunday. A slow, generally northward motion is expected to begin on Monday. On the forecast track, the center will move into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico by Monday. Higher gusts, gradual strengthening forecast during the next few days, and the system is likely to become a tropical storm on Sunday. The system could then become a hurricane over the eastern Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday. So really no changes with those updates. The next full advisory is at 10 o'clock. Now also, that's Central Time, and also they'll have updated their tropical weather outlook as well, Ethan, and I heard down the wires that they've now put the Eastern Pacific system to near 100%, so they're expecting...
Have a look. Yes, they have.
They're expecting
they say
tonight.
They say satellite-derived wind data indicate that the circulation of a low-pressure system located several hundred miles southwest of the southern tip of the Baja California Peninsula has become better defined. Additionally, the associated shower and thunderstorm activity continues to show increased signs of organization, while the system moves west-northwestward to northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour over the central portion of the eastern Pacific. If these trends continue, advisories will be initiated on a tropical depression or tropical storm tonight. So it looks like that they're going to do that overnight tonight, and they've also kept both. They've also kept both of the Atlantic things at 20%.
Both.
Mm-hmm.
What have they marked?
Well, they have 92L.
Oh, I didn't know they marked that wave yet. So they have.
Yeah, they had that last night.
Oops.
They've had that now for 24 hours plus.
There it is then. If you're like me and a bit slow there, I had it marked myself, so I was just looking at my stuff. But yep, there's just the two disturbances. And just to reiterate there, that Eastern Pacific, 100% chance near. So that's going to form, and we of course expected that. As a matter of fact, I already called it a TD earlier. I don't know what you think, Ethan.
No, I don't think it is one. I think it's close.
All right.
I've gone 100% on the TWO.
Fair enough. Let's get some more questions. We'll be finishing up shortly, but we will have our automated stream, which will be running in about an hour's time, hopefully, if we can get it coded and running by then. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we'll have all kinds of updates on all of these storms. As I said earlier, in about 3 hours there'll be another update on our channel for Typhoon Saola, and later on tomorrow morning, and probably later on in the day as well, we'll have more updates on Tropical Depression 10. Hurricane Altony Bronze says, is it possible with Tropical Depression 10 slow speed can get a higher strength? Yes, absolutely. One of the model ensembles that I saw earlier today really illustrated that, because or maybe it was last night, all of the model ensembles from the GEFS had it making landfall in the Florida Bend area with a pressure, and then the strongest ones had about 979 millibars, and then there was one outlier that was about 2 days slower, and it made landfall along the border between Alabama and Florida in the 950s. So that's an illustration there, and if it goes slower, it's got more time to take advantage of those really warm waters. As long as it doesn't move over the central Gulf at 0 miles an hour, it will get stronger than if it was going faster like it currently is expected to. And what do you think Saola's maximum intensity might be?
I think that the absolute highest that it can get to is 175 miles an hour.
175.
Absolute highest. Reasonably,
I don't know.
Reasonably, I would probably say around 155 to 160 miles an hour is probably the expectation right now, personally.
Yeah,
I think that this is. I think a strong storm is pretty set in stone later on down the line.
Yeah, I would probably forecast 155 for the second peak at the moment.
For which base? Saola?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just came in to say, and obviously you have it right there as well. The NHC on the new tropical weather outlook has 92E at near 100%, and they mention that what is it? If these trends continue, advisories will be initiated either tonight. It will be initiated, on a tropical depression or tropical storm tonight, and it's probably going to be based on the 18Z ASCAT into that. But it does look like that we're going to be having with it going up to near 100% now. That basically tells me it sounds like around 11 p.m. we'll be having our next Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. We'll be having our next storm in the Eastern Pacific.
And that's when we'll get our next full advisories, including Franklin. That's at 11 p.m.
If you ask me, come 11 p.m., I think we might be getting 2 new tropical cyclones, personally.
Well, I mean, we already have... The Cyclone Analyst team has an 18Z already... 93W, I guess? Or are you talking about something else, Ethan?
What were you saying, Nathan? Sorry?
Yeah, I was saying, what's the other one?
Have a look at my screen for our TWO, and you'll find out pretty quickly.
Oh, no.
Probably 93, then, which you have at 100 as well.
Oh, the Western Pacific. Just the way you were saying it, I thought you were talking about NHC advisories. So you're saying the West, you think the West will get designated soon?
Well, what I will say is the Cyclone Analyst team has an 18Z. They're Ami's currently working on the 0Z fix. We already have internally at Force 13. We already have 93L, which is now 10L. We all know that's a tropical depression. But as of 18Z, the Cyclone Analyst team has 92E and 93W, both as tropical depressions. So
what?
That was from earlier, and I mean, there was a very good ASCAP pass on 92E. So I do agree with the call earlier of tropical depression of 92E. And if it wasn't a tropical depression earlier, it's definitely one now. 93W, probably going to say it needs a little more time, but we probably,
Little
by the
bit.
time a lot of us wake up tomorrow, that will be definitely a tropical depression, maybe a storm as well. So we may have three stuff in the. Sorry for cutting you off. We may have three storms in the Westpac by the time we wake up tomorrow.
Woods, nice to see you in the chat there. Category 3 member for 8 months. Great to have you with us. And you can also become one of our ultimate fans if you can help support our work. We certainly appreciate that as well. We're finishing up shortly. Get a couple more questions in first. Xavier Nostalgia says, how strong do you think 10L can reasonably get? And I would say high in Cat 2.
Reasonably?
Yeah.
High end Cat 1.
Late August, Ethan.
I think that's the most realistic peak, but I do think the highest end peak would probably be around somewhere in Cat 2.
Someone behind the scenes.
I don't think it's going to be.
I'd obviously predict Cat 1.
I don't think it's going to be a high end Cat 2, but definitely would be a Cat 1. Probably mid range Cat 1 is what I think it's going to end up being. The high end range I'd say would be high end Cat 1 to low Cat 2, maybe mid Cat 2, depending on how long it stays on that eddy there on the border of the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico.
I don't know if you saw Nathan, but someone behind the scenes recently thought that their forecasted peak intensity for 10L is a low end major hurricane status, which I don't get that at all.
I mean, I wouldn't predict that, but
I wouldn't predict it this early, but if it does get really organized and that eddy does make it go crazy, it's a possibility, but I'm not going to I wouldn't predict that this early as well. I get what they're reasoning. They're saying they're like, no, sheer sea surface temperatures are off the charts in all the Gulf and oceanic heat content. But the thing is, the oceanic heat content, usually, as it is usually by the Florida coastline, is not the best. It is trying to get itself organized now. It's not going to get into that Gulf of Mexico eddy. And I mean, if we even bring up the oceanic heat content map, I'm not sure if you have that right now, Nathan.
we won't be able to. We're out of time, I'm afraid.
Oh, we are right now.
One thing that I just want to
it's
just
in
to
that
note
green area right now.
One thing I just want to note real quick. All of these great conditions that everyone keeps talking about in the Gulf of Mexico, this storm really only has about 36 hours to take advantage of that. That's it. Not a whole lot of time for this storm to take advantage of these big conditions.
Longer than that, I think the NHC is calling a Wednesday landfall.
Yeah, but
no, from
36
the time that
hours are spent stalling.
Yeah, but from the time that this storm enters the Gulf of Mexico, which is going to be in 2 days from now, to the time that it makes landfall, from the time that it enters the Gulf to the time that it actually makes landfall, that's only about 36 hours. It's not a whole lot of time.
It's true, but we'll see how much of the Western Caribbean it taps into, and then as it traverses into the Gulf, how much of the Gulf it ends up tapping into, and that will determine on how strong it ends up getting. And we'll also have to keep an eye on Franklin, as it may have not only impacts to possibly Atlantic Canada, but Bermuda. Their tropical storm force wind probabilities keep going up and up, and models keep shifting Franklin over towards Bermuda. I believe Recon is in there right now, so keep your eyes on Recon to see how strong that is going to be.
Thank you.
Might have gotten the pass. We have actually.
Okay.
Real quick. 65 knot flight level winds from this recent pass, and SFMRs of only around a high-end tropical storm. So I don't know what the heck is going on with Franklin, but something is going on.
Probably
and keep in mind, this is the exact same part of the storm that the other recon pass just passed through just about 10 to 15 minutes ago, and got higher winds.
My guess is just
something's going on.
My guess is just what's been affecting it this whole time. Sheer and dry air, but we'll see if Franklin's able to recover. But we
Thanks
are
to
out
the
of time.
team. We'll see you again soon. We'll have updates throughout the course of the next few days on our channel. Subscribe for more updates, and we'll have an automated stream coming up in a few hours. 1 or 2 hours.